Please
He
help
first
yourselves
noticed
to
her
the
not by
dinner.
the way
We
she
are so
walked
happy
into the
you are here with us
restaurant,
tonight.
but by the way she
Thank you so
hesitated
much. It
outside it.
looks
A
delicious.
pause too long, a silence too heavy. The kind of moment people only take when they're deciding whether they belong somewhere or whether they're about to embarrass themselves just by stepping inside. She stood outside the glass doors, her coat pulled tight, her hair slightly frizzy from the cold. The wind pushed at her like even it wanted her to go in, and yet she didn't move. Her hand kept drifting toward the door handle, then retreating, like she wasn't sure she had the right. He didn't know her name then. He didn't know her story. But something in the way she stood there made him lower the menu in his hands. Then he saw the small shape behind her. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, wearing a jacket one size too thin for the weather. Her hands were tucked into her sleeves, her shoes slightly scuffed, her cheeks pink from cold. She stood close enough to her mother's legs that she kept brushing against them, like she was afraid of losing her. The mother turned for a second, crouched down, whispered something. The little girl nodded, but her eyes kept drifting toward the warm lights inside the restaurant, to the tables where other people were laughing, eating, living in a world she wasn't allowed to enter. He watched the mother kiss the girl's forehead, pull her hood up tighter and whisper again. The child nodded, even though the nod was small and defeated. Then the mother stepped inside alone. He looked back at his watch, but he wasn't really reading the time anymore. So this was his blind date. At least that's what he thought, until she walked right past him, scanning the room for someone else. She didn't see him yet. She didn't see anything except her own discomfort. She kept tugging at her sleeves, smoothing her hair, checking her phone. Her movements were quick, nervous, like every second inside the restaurant was costing her something she barely had. And she looked hungry. Not starving, not dramatic, but the kind of hunger that sits behind the eyes of someone who's been choosing bills over meals for too long. He wondered for a moment if this was a mistake. If the matchmaker mixed up names. If this beautiful, frightened woman was waiting for someone else. But then she took out her phone, looked at a message, and her shoulders lowered. She had found the name she was looking for. And it was his. He stood. "Amelia," he said softly. She turned, startled. For a second her eyes lingered on his suit, his watch, the way he stood like someone used to being listened to. Then she nodded quickly. "Yes, sorry, I didn't see you." Her voice was small. Careful. Like every word needed permission. She sat down across from him, but her eyes flickered toward the glass front of the restaurant. Not once. Not twice. Constantly. He followed her gaze. The little girl was outside, standing near the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered in. Something in his chest tightened. "Is that your daughter?" he asked. Her reaction was instant. Fear, guilt, embarrassment, all twisted into one expression. "She's just waiting, just for a little. I told her I wouldn't be long." He frowned. "You left her outside." Amelia's hands trembled as she smoothed the napkin on her lap. I could. I didn't think she'd be allowed inside." He stayed quiet. Amelia swallowed. "I'm sorry, this was stupid. I should have never agreed to this date. I shouldn't be here, He waited, letting her speak. "I just needed a meal, a real one, something warm, something that didn't come from a discount can." Her voice cracked. "I thought if I came quickly and ordered something small, she wouldn't have to wait too long." Her eyes went back to the window. The little girl pressed her face closer, watching her mother, unaware she was the center of a conversation that would change everything. He watched her too, that small silhouette in the cold. Then he looked back at Amelia. "Order whatever you want," he said gently, "and tell her to come inside." Her head snapped up. "No, I can't. She'll ruin your evening. I don't want pity." "This isn't pity." She searched his face like she didn't understand how kindness worked anymore. "Please," he added softer, "let her come in." Amelia's lip trembled, not from weakness, but from the exhaustion of someone who had been strong for too long. She stood, walked to the door, then to the window. The little girl's eyes lit up the moment she saw her mother. Amelia opened the door and whispered something. The child shook her head. He could see it even from here. She didn't want to cause trouble. She didn't want to make her mother upset. He stood, walked over, and knelt so he was eye level with the girl. "Hey," he said gently, "would you help me? I'm terrible at choosing dinner. I need someone your size to tell me which dessert is best." Her big eyes widened. She looked up at her mother, then back at him, then at the warm restaurant behind him. And she nodded. He smiled. "Good, come in. It's cold out here." Amelia wiped her eyes quickly, trying not to show gratitude that felt too heavy to carry. They walked inside together, the child's small hand wrapped around her mother's fingers. He noticed the way other patrons glanced at them, at the worn clothes, the tired eyes, the little girl with the too light jacket, but he didn't care. He guided them back to the table, pulled out the chair for the girl, and sat down like this was the most normal thing in the world. The little girl looked at the menu like it was a fairy tale. Amelia looked at him like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming or in danger of waking up. He rested his elbows on the table, leaned forward a little, and smiled. "Let's start again," he said. "I'm Lucas." Amelia nodded slowly, still unsure, still trembling, still wondering if kindness this big had a price. "I'm Amelia," she whispered. "And what about you?" he asked the child. The little girl straightened her back, shy but brave. "Mia," she said softly. Lucas smiled. "Well, Mia, I hope you're hungry." She nodded so hard her hood slipped off. And for the first time that evening, Amelia let out a breath she'd been holding for years. The waiter approached with a polite smile, but Lucas noticed how the man's eyes lingered on Amelia's worn coat and Mia's old jacket. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Lucas caught everything. He always had. Years of boardrooms, negotiations, and reading, people left him with a sense for the silent judgments others thought they hid well. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" the waiter asked. Mia opened her mouth, hesitating, like she wasn't used to being asked what she wanted. She glanced at her mother first. Amelia answered quickly. "Just water for both of us." Lucas didn't even look at the waiter when he said, "We'll have a hot chocolate for the little lady, extra marshmallows." He turned to Mia with a soft smile. "If that's okay with your mom." Mia's eyes lit up in a way that made Amelia's throat tighten. "Only if it's not too expensive," Amelia whispered. Lucas looked at her for a long moment, not judging, not pitying, just seeing her, really seeing her. "Hot chocolate is always affordable," he said gently. The waiter nodded, writing fast. "And for the table," Lucas added, "bring the soup of the day, 2 bread baskets and—" "No," Amelia blurted out, her voice louder than she meant. "Please, we don't need all that." Lucas paused. She immediately shrank in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Mia and I ate before coming." He looked at Mia. The child's stomach growled so loudly, it felt like the whole restaurant heard it. Mia pushed her hands over her belly in shame, curling into the chair. Lucas didn't react with pity. He didn't soften his voice or tilt his head like a sympathetic stranger. He just said, in a tone warm enough to cover the child like a blanket, "Then it sounds like we could all use something warm." Slowly, Amelia nodded. Defeated. Not by him. By life. As the waiter walked away, Lucas saw Amelia swipe at her eyes again, subtly, hoping no one would notice. She wasn't crying because she was sad. She was crying because someone was finally being gentle with her. "Thank you," she whispered, looking at the table rather than at him. You don't owe me thanks, Lucas replied softly. You're here, your daughter's safe and warm, that's enough. Silence followed, not awkward, but heavy with things she didn't know how to say. Mia swung her legs under the table, still shy but less frozen than before. Every now and then, she peeked up at Lucas like she was studying him the way children do when they're deciding if someone is safe. Lucas smiled every time their eyes met, and Mia quickly looked away, hiding a tiny grin. Amelia watched it all with disbelief. So, Lucas said gently, shifting the atmosphere, tell me something about Mia. She looks very brave. Mia perked up despite herself. She is, Amelia replied quickly, brushing Mia's hair behind her ear. She's braver than me most days. What makes you brave, Mia? Lucas asked softly. Mia glanced at her mother again. Then quietly she whispered, I help Mommy pack boxes. Lucas tilted his head. Boxes. Amelia looked away. She didn't want to explain. She didn't want to reveal that packing boxes meant sorting through donations they could barely carry home, or collecting recyclables for pennies, or packing the remnants of the apartment they were often late on paying rent for. So Lucas changed his tone, letting Mia stay proud. That's impressive, he said with warmth. I could use someone strong like you at my office. Mia giggled softly, trying to hide her smile behind her jacket sleeve. Amelia watched her daughter glow under attention she never received. It hurt in a beautiful way. When the drinks arrived, the steaming hot chocolate made Mia stare with unblinking wonder. She reached for it, then froze. She looked at her mother. Go on, Amelia whispered softly. Careful, it's hot. Lucas watched the child take her first sip. Her eyes closed. Her shoulders dropped. It was only cocoa, sugar, and warmth. But to a child who rarely felt warm, it was a small miracle. That's really good, Mia whispered, stunned. Amelia smiled sadly at her daughter's excitement over something so ordinary. Lucas leaned back, observing with a softness few people ever saw from him. So, Amelia, he said gently, you came here tonight expecting a blind date. She stiffened. Yes. Were you hopping for something? He asked carefully. She hesitated, then answered with brutal honesty. I was hopping for dinner, nothing more. He didn't look offended. He didn't look surprised. Amelia stared down at her hands. I haven't had a real meal in 4 days, she whispered. Not one that wasn't from a can or leftovers someone else didn't want. He stayed quiet. She continued, voice trembling. I didn't want Mia to go to bed hungry again, and the woman who set the date said the man would pay for dinner, so she closed her eyes in shame. I said yes. Lucas let the truth settle between them without rushing to fill the silence. He didn't reach across the table or try to soothe her with empty words. He simply said, I'm glad you came, and I'm glad she's here. Amelia's eyes softened but remained guarded. You don't even know us, she whispered. I'd like to, he replied simply. She looked out the window, guilt pressing hard on her chest. I didn't tell the matchmaker I had a daughter, she said. I thought no one would want a date with a single mom who can barely afford bus fare. Lucas's brows lifted slightly. Well, he said calmly, here I am. She shook her head. You're being too kind. Maybe, he said, or maybe I just think you deserve it. Her breath caught. For a moment, it felt like something in her cracked, just a little. A small, fragile shift. The waiter returned with bread and soup. Mia reached for a piece of bread so eagerly that Amelia gently tapped her hand, reminding her to wait. Lucas pretended not to notice the desperation in the child's movements. Please, he said softly, eat both of you. Amelia hesitated for a moment longer before breaking a small piece of bread and handing it to Mia. The child chewed slowly, savoring every bite like she didn't want the taste to end. and Lucas watched them like he was witnessing something sacred. Not a mother and child eating bread. No, a mother who had been starving herself to feed her daughter. A child who had learned to hide her hunger to protect her mother. These were things people rarely saw. But he saw them, and something inside him moved. When the main dishes arrived, warm plates, full portions, even more than Amelia expected, her eyes widened again. "Lucas, this is too much," she whispered. "No," he said, "this is normal. This is what dinner should look like." "But—" "No buts." The way he said it, it wasn't commanding, it wasn't authoritative. It was gentle, final, like she deserved not to argue with kindness for once. Amelia finally took a bite. Warmth spread through her. Relief, disbelief, sadness, gratitude, everything at once. She didn't realize how long she'd been hungry until food touched her tongue. Mia ate with small, careful bites, like she was afraid the food would disappear if she went too fast. Lucas noticed. "Hey, Mia," he said softly, "the food isn't going anywhere. You can take big bites if you want." She looked up. "Really? Really?" For the first time that night, Mia took a full, happy bite. And Amelia closed her eyes in silent, aching relief. Mid-meal, Amelia looked at Lucas again. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Why are you kind?" Lucas thought for a long moment. Then he said quietly, almost too quiet, "Because someone once did it for me." Amelia blinked. But Lucas didn't explain. Not yet. He simply continued eating, letting his words settle between them like a secret he wasn't ready to reveal. Across from him, Amelia stared, not with suspicion, but with something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Dinner should have ended an hour ago. The plates were empty, the cocoa long finished, and the restaurant slowly quieted around them as the late evening settled. But none of them moved. Not Lucas, not Amelia, and especially not Mia, who had fallen asleep with her head resting on her mother's lap, her tiny hand still curled around the sleeve of Amelia's coat. The child's breathing was soft, even the breathing of someone who finally felt full, safe, and warm. Lucas watched her sleep for a moment, then lifted his gaze to Amelia. She wasn't eating anymore. She wasn't speaking. She was staring at her daughter as if she'd forgotten there were other people in the world. "Sorry," she whispered suddenly, as if remembering his presence. "She must be tired. It's been a long week." Lucas shook his head gently. "No need to apologize." Amelia tried to smile. It came out broken around the edges. "You say that like you really mean it." "I do." She looked down at Mia again, brushing the loose strands of hair from her forehead. "She hasn't slept this peacefully in weeks," Amelia whispered. "She usually tosses, wakes up. Sometimes she cries nightmares." Her throat tightened. "Tonight she feels safe." Lucas didn't say anything. Silence was kinder. After a moment, she continued. "You asked earlier what I was hopping for from this date," she said, her voice low but steady. "And I told you I came for dinner, and that was true, but that's only half of it." He leaned in slightly, but didn't interrupt. "I came because I'm tired," she said quietly. "Tired of pretending I'm okay. Tired of working jobs that barely cover rent. Tired of smiling at Mia so she won't see the fear in my eyes. Tired of skipping meals so she can eat. Tired of praying the electricity won't be cut off. Tired of acting like I'm not drowning." Her fingers trembled as she touched the sleeping girl's cheek. "I came tonight because I couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me without expecting something, without wanting something." She swallowed. "And I thought, maybe, a date would make me feel like a woman again, not just a mother trying to survive." Lucas exhaled softly through his nose. "Did it?" he asked. She met his eyes. For the first time without fear. Yes, she whispered, it did. He didn't look away. Neither did she. The connection between them, quiet, warm, unexpected, filled the space more powerfully than any touch. Lucas leaned back slightly, studying her. You're strong, he said. Amelia laughed softly, shaking her head. No, I'm tired. Tired and strong can be the same thing, he replied. She stared at him for a moment, as if memorizing the words. Lucas, she said quietly, why were you really here tonight? You could have done anything. You could have dated anyone. You're you. He smirked slightly. That's supposed to mean something. You know it does. He folded his hands together. I came, he said slowly, because I've spent years building things that look good from the outside. Companies, wealth, a reputation. People think I have everything. Don't you? She asked. Lucas looked down at the table. When I was 12, he said quietly, my mother worked 3 jobs. She never ate dinner with us because she was always working. She would come home at midnight and sit at the foot of my bed just to make sure I was breathing. His jaw tightened. There were nights we didn't eat at all, nights when the heat didn't work, nights when she cried and thought I didn't hear. Amelia's eyes softened. One winter, Lucas continued, someone left groceries on our doorstep. No note, no explanation, just kindness, and I never forgot it. He lifted his eyes to hers. I promised myself, if I ever had money, real money, I'd never ignore someone who reminded me of her. Amelia blinked slowly. You saw your mother in me, she whispered. I saw strength, he corrected, and love, and someone who deserved a warm meal and a safe night, not because she begged for it, but because she works harder than anyone else in the room. He paused, and I saw a child who shouldn't be standing outside in the cold. Her breath hitched. Lucas, I'm not here to fix your life, he said gently, but I am here because I want to know you, the real you. Amelia looked at him like no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Why? She asked, a whisper barely above breath. Because, he said simply, you make me feel something I haven't felt in years. She looked away, eyes wet, overwhelmed. Outside, snow began falling in soft flakes, catching on the window glass. The restaurant lights glowed warm against the night, creating a small world that felt separate from everything harsh waiting outside. After a long pause, Amelia spoke again. We have to go soon, it's late. He nodded. I'll take you home. No, she said immediately, shaking her head. I can't ask you to do that. You didn't ask, I offered. Lucas. Amelia. Their eyes met. I'm not letting you walk home in the cold with a sleeping child. She opened her mouth to protest again, but Mia stirred in her lap, rubbing her eyes and sitting up just enough to look around. Mommy, she murmured. Amelia kissed her forehead. I'm here, baby. Mia blinked sleepily, then looked at Lucas with a tiny, confused smile. Are we going home? She asked him instead of Amelia. Lucas smiled softly. Yes, sweetheart, you are. Amelia's heart squeezed. Lucas stood, put on his coat and reached for the check. Amelia panicked. Wait, I can't let you. Amelia, he said softly, I know. He placed the card down. But I'm doing it anyway. She watched helplessly as the waiter took the check. Lucas turned back to her. There's no debt, he said quietly. No expectation, no price. Tonight was dinner, just dinner, from one human being to another. Her eyes burned. She nodded. They left the restaurant together. The cold hit immediately, sharp and unforgiving, but Lucas stepped closer, blocking the wind from Mia, who clung to Amelia's neck. Where do you live? Lucas asked gently. She hesitated, shame, fear, pride, everything tangled. A few blocks away, she finally whispered, on Maple. He nodded, then led them to his car, warm, clean, black, and far too expensive to belong in her world. She froze. Luca's eye. "It's just a ride home," he said, "not a contract." She let out a shaky breath and finally walked toward the car. He opened the back door himself, helped Mia settle into the seat, and even tucked her coat around her. Mia looked up at him with sleepy gratitude. "You're nice," she whispered. Lucas brushed her hair gently. "You deserve nice." Amelia's chest tightened again. The drive was quiet, soft, almost intimate in its silence. Snow drifted across the windshield, catching the glow of streetlights. Amelia watched Mia's eyelids grow heavy again, her head leaning against the window. Lucas glanced at Amelia. "You don't have to tell me everything tonight," he said, "but I hope this isn't the last time I see you." She looked down at her hands. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me?" he asked. "Of hope," she whispered. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. When they reached her building, a small, aging structure with peeling paint and flickering hallway lights, Lucas put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. Amelia unbuckled her seatbelt slowly. "Thank you," she whispered sincerely, "for tonight, for everything." He nodded once, but his eyes said more. "Can I walk you up?" She shook her head gently. "No, this is where you stop. Mia needs to sleep, and you've done enough." He didn't argue. He respected her boundary. But he leaned slightly closer, his voice low, warm. "Amelia," he said, "if you ever need anything, food, help, a ride, a friend, anything, you call me." Her breath trembled. "I don't want to take advantage of you." "You won't," he said. "I trust you." She swallowed hard. "Good night, Lucas." "Good night, Amelia." She lifted Mia into her arms, the child's small body curling into her instinctively. Lucas opened the door for them, and she stepped into the cold hallway, snowflakes drifting into the building behind her. She turned one last time. Lucas was standing there, watching her with an expression she couldn't read fully, part tenderness, part worry, part something deeper. She whispered "thank you" one last time. Then she walked inside. Lucas stayed there for a long moment, watching the door close behind them. And for the first time in a very long time, he hoped. Deeply. Dangerously. And all because a poor single mother walked into a restaurant and showed him a love story he never expected.